Kate Galli. Thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Trainers podcast.
It's my huge pleasure to be here with you.
And it's 4 a.m. for you, or 5 a.m. for you. So we even more appreciate your time, using your morning time, your quiet time, probably productive time. So it's so wonderful to have you here. And what is your moment of gratitude to share?
Cool. So my gratitude is the amazing conversations I get to have every single week with amazing vegan athletes and authors and activists, people that I get to spend time with one-on-one having these conversations. And I am so grateful that they channel their passion and their expertise and their energy towards creating a kinder world for animals and for humans too.
It's a really nice blend of two worlds. And of course, when you do things that are good for your body, when you do things that are good for you and your family, then that ripples out into the world and it touches the land, it touches the animals, it touches other people, and it's just so wonderful to be a part of that movement. So thank you for being part of that.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So tell us a little bit about how you found a plant-based lifestyle.
Cool. So I actually turned vegetarian first at 16, and wow, I wish I knew then what I know now. Because I turned vegetarian for ethical reasons. I had no idea what else was happening to the animals that, I still ate, so far as dairy and eggs. Probably lots of seeds leading to that moment, but the final seed was a particularly horrific smoked trout and fish roe soup, which you have to eat to be polite when you're with friends at that age. You have no choice. Your parents tell you must eat this or it's rude. And that's what happened with that soup. I forced it down before a particularly windy car drive, and I vomited the soup back up, and I kind of decided that day back at 16 that I wanted to be in charge of what I put in my mouth, and I didn't want animals to be included in that. And, fast forward quite a few years until I got into fitness in my late 20s. I was still vegetarian. I was doing vegetarian healthily by then. It took me a while to get to the healthy point of view. But that was a very kind of meat dominated industry so far as the people I admired, so far as the people that I hung out with. I didn't have any vegan role models. I hadn't sought them out. Maybe I knew what a vegan was by then, but I didn't have role models. So it actually wasn't until 2016, at the beginning of that year, and Cowspiracy, like for so many people, I think, I saw that documentary. It kind of showed to me everything that I had been hiding from. There it was, smack bang in my face, and I had no choice after seeing that documentary. I was so grateful. And so that was when I decided I needed to be 100% vegan.
And so what kind of changes did you experience physically or mentally, emotionally, once you did make that change?
Do you know, the biggest was definitely mentally and emotionally, because I'm sure I had been carrying around some incongruency, thinking of myself as an animal lover, and even thinking of myself as healthy when as a vegetarian. And this is really embarrassing to admit, but at one stage I had 21 egg whites a day. Like, I was super into the high protein, low carb vegetarian, and there was just an incongruency there. So the biggest difference was feeling that my actions were aligned with my values and my beliefs, and that's really important to me. From an actual physical point of view, I got super strategic because I kind of had a point to prove. I wanted to prove that you can be fit, strong, happy, and healthy following a vegan lifestyle. So my food was amazing. It's still pretty amazing, but I was really strategic with the vitamins and minerals, the micronutrients that you need to get. So physically, no changes really. Maybe I lost a tiny little bit of fat, but there wasn't much to lose. And I definitely got a little bit stronger as well. So surprising.
So you were eating so many egg whites to try to stay fit, to try to keep your muscle on. And then when you let go of all of that protein, you got maybe a little bit stronger and maybe you lost a little bit of weight. But generally speaking, you didn't lose your strength, and you didn't lose your energy, and you didn't gain weight by adding more carbohydrates and all of that into your diet.
Hilarious, right? Like I did it bit by bit. I tried to do the kind of lower carb vegan to start with. Like I was still really in that whole myth and propaganda of the fitness industry. And, I remember even telling the boys at work that I was going to go vegan, and they already gave me grief for being vegetarian. And I remember one of them saying, well, goodbye lean muscle mass. And so I kind of had a point to prove, right? And then over the years, it's been almost 5 years now, over the years, I've gradually just included more and more carbs, like whole food carbs. And finally, like I don't believe it took me so long, but now I'm not terrified of carbs at all, right? Whole foods, one ingredient foods are amazing. And as you say, Shoshana, like all the carbs, and, I didn't lose any muscle. I didn't gain any fats.
It's kind of crazy. I mean, everybody's so focused on getting in so much protein because they think if without it, they're going to wither away. And we've spoken to so many people on our podcast, like Robert Cheek, Dr. Garth Davis, specifically about building muscle without over consuming protein. And it's just such a, you said myth before, and it is really such an old way of thinking to be so reductionist and not taking into account all the macro and micronutrients that our body needs. And we talked to Dr. T. Colin Campbell about it. And there's so many amazing people leading the way and clarifying that protein's not the only thing our body needs. We actually need the carbohydrates, the fats, and all the micronutrients as well.
Absolutely. And the fiber, right? Like that's kind of like, that's not talked about enough yet. We're so worried about getting enough protein. We get too much protein and all the bad stuff that comes with the animal protein. And we're not focused enough on fiber.
Yeah, a variety of fiber, so much.
That's the Dr. Will Bulsiewicz thing, right? A variety of fiber.
And people are scared that that's what's going to make them gain weight. Yeah. And what I find with my clients is if they're very slow giving up their animal protein, which they need to do at their pace, and they're adding in a ton more carbohydrates that their body isn't used to, there might be that flex of weight gain at the beginning, but as your body gets used to it and learns how to digest it and utilize it as energy again, and as you get rid of more and more of those animal proteins and products, everything just works out nicely. Is that what you find in your work as well?
Yeah, 100%. As Will says, kind of like start small and progress it so far as that plant-based abundant diversity. You can't rush in. I mean, if you make it if you make the decision to be vegan for ethical point of views, you kind of do rush in so far as they're eliminating the animal products, right? But perhaps the same as you guys, the majority of my clients approach the more plant-based lifestyle from a health point of view, and they are more keen to be gradual with the elimination of those animal products.
And that's how I came into it, from a health perspective. And we've talked about my story on the show so many times, but when we talk about all this nutrition and the change in lifestyle and the plant-based from being a carnivore, and it's very stressful, and there's so much information out there. Some of it's true, some of it's myth. We don't know, and people are so confused and they get very overwhelmed by all of these things. And so what I think we wanted to really talk about is all those people that are transitioning, are going through change, and are becoming so overwhelmed and stressed. We want to kind of help them dissect that a little bit and help them reduce their overwhelm, reduce that stress. And hopefully today you could share with us and our audience some ways that people can do that.
So let's start with what overwhelm really is. Can you give us a little bit of a definition so people understand it more?
Yeah, I'd love to. So to me, overwhelm it's scattered, lazy thinking. And, I still do overwhelm from time to time. So it's just more, a matter of being aware that your thinking's gotten out of control and you're focusing on everything that you need to do, with a special focus on those things that you can't control. So that's pretty unfun. We don't want to be continuing on down that kind of inefficient, ineffective, unfun path.
And what's happening in the body emotionally or physically when we are struck with this overwhelm? What's the damaging effects?
So to me, I feel like you're kind of just bouncing. So your thoughts are bouncing from one, ineffective thought to the next ineffective thought. Physically, you might be bouncing from one task to the next, but you're not prioritizing any of them. So and I guess to speak like from my own example, many years ago, I owned a gym and it was like the business from hell. It was like a money hemorrhaging nightmare. And I was overwhelmed the whole entire time. And I was focusing on, what seemed urgent, not what seemed important. And I was always putting out fires, and my body just felt like stressed and anxious and, the opposite of calm and prioritizing. And I'd go to bed every night thinking I hadn't gotten enough done. I'd get up every morning thinking I hadn't gotten enough sleep. And I was just perpetually overwhelmed. And that's probably part of why I started to put so much thought into the steps that we can proactively take to overcome overwhelm.
Do you see overwhelm as being the same as stress, or is it different in its terminology a little bit so that our audience understands?
Yeah, I'm sure there are differences. I imagine that some of the things we can do to help ourselves out so far as feeling less overwhelmed or feeling less stress, some of the solutions are going to be the same, and some of the detriments to each of them are going to be the same as well. So I think everything that I recommend for overwhelm is going to help so far as minimizing stress too.
When I think of overwhelm, I think about there's so much to do, or the task at hand is too big that I can't physically handle it all on my own, which is stressful and will create stress. And when I think about stress, it might be something that you have no control over and you don't even have to do. It's just a stressful situation. And regardless, neither of those situations are good for our hormones, for our cortisol levels, for our adrenal levels. They're not good for our sleep. So we really need to focus in today and give everybody some really great tactics for overcoming the overwhelm.
Absolutely. And as you say, like it's a focus on what you can't control. So the overall kind of solution is to focus on what you can control, and I guess have the discipline too to keep your focus on that which is within your control and start on just the next one most important thing.
Perfect. So I think you have 9 tactics. Is that right?
I do. I love an acronym. So my 9 tactics spell overwhelm. So the first of them is the most important, and that's what I just covered. So O is for only focus on what you can control.
Only focus on what you can control. So how does somebody decide if it's something that they're faced with that they do have control over versus something that is just out of their control?
Yeah, of course. So because we're talking about adopting a healthy plant-based lifestyle, one of the things that you absolutely can always control, and I so get that it's easier for some of us than others given our lifestyle situation and circumstances, but you can control the food you put into your body. So that is one thing that you absolutely can control. And I have 10 tips to adopt a healthy plant-based lifestyle. I'm sure you guys have plenty of tips so far as that as well. But the first of those tips that I would say, not to get distracted, but when you're turning plant-based or adopting a vegan lifestyle, you want to build your meals around fibrous veg, healthy plant-based protein, and good fats. And so that's kind of step one, rather than building a meal around the main event that used to be flesh for most of us when we ate animals. Instead, you're going to focus on building that meal around your fibrous veg, your plant-based protein, your good fat. That's something that anyone can focus on.
Amazing. So what would V be?
So V is for value, your daily progress and small wins. So I am a huge fan of even documenting your daily reference points for success. I write mine out every single night, but for the listener, find what resonates for you. Maybe it's just focusing on like taking that extra moment or two to focus on when something goes right. And it might not be a huge something, but it might be, hey, I had like soy milk with my oats and berries for breakfast. It can be a really small win, but I want you to focus on it.
It's super interesting because so many people tend to focus on the negatives rather than the positives. Everyone will go through their regular day, and when you reflect back, they remember the things that were bad that happened to them rather than the good things. So I think finding value is such an important thing to do, and to find a few little things, the small wins, make a big difference in the long run. So that's a great second step that people could do.
For sure. It just makes life more fun too, right?
And sometimes people don't feel accountable enough to write it down themselves in a journal. What I find is I have a weekly group where we all talk about our wins. And when I go to bed at night, I do find myself spiraling like, oh, I didn't get this done, or oh, I could have done that better. But on this Wednesday, when I hear other people saying their wins, all of a sudden my list is of 30. And then I have to choose something like, what am I actually going to choose? I want to share them all. So talking it out with somebody else really does help get you hyped up and help get your mind trained to find your wins throughout the day too.
I love that. That's awesome. And like in COVID time right now, that could be a really good time to use our WhatsApp group chats and that sort of thing at the end of the night, if we're not actually, catching up with people as much.
Exactly. Good. All right. So OVE. We're on E.
E is for eliminate unnecessary inputs, and that could be from a crapola type food point of view, or more so, I would say, so far as overwhelm, the inputs, the stuff you let into your mind, into your brain, so the unnecessary news and media and rubbish TV that doesn't make you feel good. We let so much in. We're hit with so much marketing and advertising and so many messages, and I think it's to our benefit to be a little bit more diligent with what we do let into our minds.
So if we eliminate those inputs for somebody that's never done something like that before, what would be a simple first thing for them to just eliminate? Would they just turn off the news? Because then, that's a rough input to let go, because then how am I going to know what's going on in the world? So how does somebody who's never done this before decide what would be a good thing to start off with eliminating?
Yeah, great point. Like I'm kind of big on the black or white and dive straight in, but they could just set some boundaries. So they could kind of recognize that I feel rubbish whenever I get off social media. So maybe not good to do it like 100 times a day. Maybe I just set the boundary of I check it once after I've done 3 hours of work on my most important task in the morning, and once in the evening, not before bed, and 20 minutes at a time. Or the news, maybe I just watch whatever your preferred news sources, like once during the day, or read that important I would listen to a great podcast, like The Daily, maybe something like that. So you get like 30 minutes of news. You're not completely ignorant, because I've gone through that phase as well, where my mum and dad in Noosa ring to tell me that Noosa's flooding, and I had no idea because I didn't watch the news. So you're right. You have to set some boundaries with that eliminating of unnecessary inputs.
R. We're on R now.
R is to respect structure is freedom. So I love structure. I'm a planner. I love to plan my day to come the night before, but it doesn't come so easily to everyone. However, you can feel overwhelmed if the whole day is full of everything that you need to do and you're focusing on that which isn't within your control. If you set that structure, it tells you, yes, what you need to do and when you might need to do it and what the priority is. But also it lets you know all that time that isn't structured, that is free you time. And that's freeing. That's freedom.
I think we're very similar with the black and the white thing, and having a schedule and planning out makes a lot of sense to us. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking that for somebody who's not black and white, who likes to ease into things, now we're telling them to go restructure their schedule, reschedule, start planning, and boom, they just got overwhelmed even more. So instead of jumping right into it, how would they ease into that restructuring situation?
Do you know if they were feeling really hesitant? I would say start with your morning routine. So if your whole day is one unstructured, mess to me, but maybe freedom to you, I would say start with a morning routine that excites you, that like it involves the fuel that you love to eat. It involves some sort of mindfulness, whether it's meditation or journaling or even prayer, if that's your thing, and it involves some sort of activity as well, and not a hateful activity. It might just be a little walk part of the way to work, or 5 minutes of exercise. But if the whole day structured sounds overwhelming, start with the morning routine. Aim with just 3 things. You don't need a list of 10 things in your morning routine. That is overwhelming, and you'd have to get up at 4 a.m. each day like me. So start small, right? And then it becomes a reference point for success that you can build on.
And then if somebody were ready to jump all in and say, okay, here's the times of days I'm going to eat my meals, here's the meals I'm going to eat, here's the fitness that I'm going to put in, and they seriously want to do it, but they're having trouble committing to it every day, is there some kind of NLP or some kind of tactic that they could use to get their subconscious or get themselves to actually commit?
Gosh, there's so much so far as NLP. That's like hours of conversation. But the thing that comes to mind first, for me, one of my favorite mind games to play with myself is the reframe. So whatever you're thinking that is not helping you get the results that you want to get, or more so take the actions that you want to take, I would find the way to reframe that in your mind, so far as your self-talk, to a way that lets you take that more positive action. So for example, if you wake up and it's a cold, dark day, and the last thing you want to do is put your running gear on and go out for a jog, that's your focus. Your focus is, how much I don't want to do this, right? So you reframe that to a more positive approach. So maybe when I go for a run today, the first thing I've done in my day is I've put me and my health first. I've shown myself that I'm a person that comes through for me. And I know that my eating choices throughout the day are going to be so much better as well. That could be a long but beneficial reframe.
Perfect.
Yeah, the way you start your day really makes a big difference. So working on the morning routine for someone who needs restructuring is a great way to start. What would be next? It would be the W. So what is that for?
Yeah, so W was hard. It was a willingness to constantly upgrade the freedom creating structure. So for those of us that are into structure, we can get really attached to it, even to our detriment. And I think we need to be aware of when something's not working quite so well with us, so far as our structure and our clinging to it. Like I cling to structure, like it's my savior. And, sometimes other people, like clients or whatever it may be, jump in the way of my structure, and it stresses me out and it overwhelms me. So I think we need to constantly analyze the way that we're structuring our day, and, make sure that it is still freedom. Yes, that you're being efficient and effective in your day, but also that you're loving every single day as well. That is so important. So analyze your structure and make sure that it's still aligned with, I guess, the ideal day and the ideal life that you want to be living.
Beautiful, beautiful. And that's a deep one. That's one where you really do start to dig deep, but that you could make a lot of movement. What would we say for H then?
H's have the sensory acuity to know when your focus is slipping and that little overwhelm monster is kind of creeping into your day. So as much as we know it, as much as we talk about it, we can find ourselves in a state, so to speak, where, we are starting to feel overwhelmed. So again, it's a checking in, it's a noticing that, wow, I'm bouncing from this thing to this thing and I'm not being really effective. I'm feeling really busy, but I'm not getting a lot done. So it is that ability to just check in with you and, pull your mind back to where it needs to be. And I know one of the later steps is going to help us with that.
Building awareness around so many things that we do is very challenging for a lot of people. So if they're in the midst of getting overwhelmed, how are they going to just have that awareness to pull back and restructure?
Sometimes you just need to sit and take a break, or I often do this, or more so I would go for a walk. Actually, I would go for a walk in nature, and it doesn't have to be a beautiful 60 to 90-minute indulgent walk. It might just be a few minutes, but often, especially if we run our own business or whatever place you're in, actually, you can notice that you're just crazily head down, tail up, pretty scattered in your thinking and your work. And it's not really that effective. And to acknowledge to yourself that, hey, if I take 5 minutes out, if I get up, I have a glass of water, I walk around the house or I walk around the block and just get some fresh air. So very often that's enough of a state break, so to speak, to kind of help you drag yourself back on track.
Yeah, plan those walks, plan those breaks, plan that water, your exercise throughout the day if you can, to have a little bit more often but a little bit less intensity or a little bit less time can make all the difference. And I think I experienced that yesterday. I mean, something that I know and something that I try to do, but yesterday I actually felt it. I took a couple of hours off of my work day throughout the day to spend some time with my son. And at the end of the day, I didn't feel like I didn't get everything done that I wasn't supposed to get. In fact, it was a very productive day. So yeah, you can surprise yourself when you try, but it can be overwhelming to think about it, but take a breath and give it a try.
Sometimes taking that break allows you to push further later on. So it's worth taking that break. Yeah. So we got 3 more. Let's go to the E.
E, so it's like you guys read my mind, because E is escape to nature at least once a week. Look, I need this. Everyone's different. I find if I don't walk in nature, gosh, during COVID times, it was every day, right? And now it's about 3 times a week. But to proactively, Shoshana, as you said, structure that nature time, or if you're someone that hates nature, maybe it's special family time, whatever it is for you that you need to escape to. And we all know what helps our minds and our bodies run most smoothly and most happily so far as that precious you time that you need. For me, it's nature. So schedule that in, make that non-negotiable once a week. I really super recommend it.
Yeah, I think that one's huge. It feels so good to be out in nature. And even if you're not a nature lover, you got to try it because it's really going to help. Yeah.
And you could do it alone or with other people. And the focus there for you might be other people, even if it needs to be socially distant. But the socialization of it might work for you, but the nature part of it might work for somebody else. And everybody gets what they need out of it. Yeah.
That's a really good point.
L
is for lock and load your big rocks, those big rocks that keep you happy, healthy, and efficient. So the big rock principle is these are the really important things that we structure into our day, into our week in advance. We can't let our week be filled or our day filled with those less significant, less effective little pebbles, so to speak. So the big rocks are individual to everyone. However, some hard hitting ones might be your meal prep, your exercise, your sleep, your time with family. We all know what they are for each of us. If you don't know what they are, think about when you were most happy and efficient and effective in your life, and think of the things that you made time for as a priority back then. And fair chance they're going to be some of your big rocks. And I recommend scheduling them both into your week and also into your every single day.
Schedule. It keeps coming up.
I know.
It keeps coming up. And somebody told me a quote last week, and I don't remember exactly how it went, but it went something like, you'll find your freedom when you schedule your time, or through scheduling, you'll have more flexibility. Something like that. That was the point behind it.
Structure's freedom, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, last one. We're there. M.
M is meditate. It took me so many years to get to this. I fought it because I thought it was a waste of my valuable time just sitting there. So for that individual who's been fighting meditation, that thinks, it's a little bit overwhelming, this new habit to start with a couple of minutes a day. I think I started with 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes maximum. Build up as you feel comfortable building up. But the really amazing thing with meditation is not the precious, enjoyable you time that it is that 10 minutes that you're doing it, because it's not always that. In fact, it's often not that. But it gives you space and room to pause before you overreact or react in so many situations. So I find it calms me down, it slows me down. It gives me that space to think, hey, am I being scattered and lazy with my thinking right now? And what's a better way that I could be doing this?
I'm remembering a time of standing at the sink, and Adam, I don't know if he said it or he gave me this look of like, what's wrong with you? And before I could smack him, I realized that I'm just kidding. But before I could mentally smack him, I realized that I hadn't meditated that day. And I said to him, like, I didn't meditate this morning. I've been off all day. And I hadn't even realized it. Somehow I had missed it. It's not something that I normally miss unless I miss an alarm clock and then need to get the kids out to school, or unless something happened with the kids that pulled me out of my room a little bit earlier. But I think people don't need to be overwhelmed by the thought of sitting there doing nothing. It could be playing your favorite song and just taking some deep breaths, listening to it, or standing up and dancing by yourself to it, or taking that walk and counting your steps. It doesn't have to be sitting in one spot trying to stop your mind. It's about becoming one with your mind and your body in whatever form feels right to you.
That's a really good point. You need to find it's only effective long term if it's sustainable. And for it to be sustainable, you need to find the form of meditation that resonates with you.
I think these are really great tactics, great 9 tactics that people are going to have to re-listen to this episode to be able to catch them all. Or maybe I'll list them in our show notes at planttrainers.com so that people can go back and actually see them and remember what they were. But thank you so much for sharing them. And I know we started the conversation talking about plant-based lifestyle and transitioning, and this is overwhelming. But the truth is these 9 tactics apply to anything in life, really. It doesn't have to just be specifically for a transition to a plant-based lifestyle. It really applies to everything we do.
That is so true. And, I love that with any new skill that you're learning or any new habit that you're looking to implement. Yes, it takes a bit of effort up front, but then that skill that you're implementing or learning is absolutely applicable to not just the area of your life that might be new or struggle street right now, but, it carries across into, as you said, Adam, into every aspect of your life.
Yeah. Kate, thank you so much for sharing all this great information with our listeners and with us. If people want to reach out and connect with you, where would you like them to go?
It's been such a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun having this conversation. The best place to find me, number one, is Healthification. That's my podcast. It's my heart. I love it. I have conversations with amazing activists and athletes and authors and doctors. And So that is search Healthification anywhere where you find podcasts. And then online, I'm just strongbodygreenplanet.com is the website, or across the socials, Strong Body Green Planet. And I write about stuff like overwhelm and backing yourself and emotional eating and so many things like that across at the blog.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Thank you so much for your expertise. And I do hope people go and check you out. And we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Absolutely. I look forward to having you guys on my podcast soon.
It's going to be fun.
That'll be amazing. This chat's been a heap of fun. And thank you so much for all the goodness that you guys put out into the world.
Thank you.